Hi, it's Ryan Ward. I'm the broker and the owner of Premier Atlanta Real Estate. Hope you're having a great day. Today, we are going to be looking at whether there is still going to be something of a housing crash out on the horizon. A lot of people have been talking about this really since the end of last year. And once a month, I put out some market statistics, some very detailed market statistics on the Atlanta real estate market for a number of reasons. One, I like to be able to look at some trends and be able to look forward a little bit so that we can do the best job we can of trying to predict what is to come. That's part of my job as a leader of the company. And we also provide a PDF for all of our agents so that they can have a full understanding of the real estate market and advise their clients properly. So let's go ahead and jump right into some of the Atlanta real estate market statistics, and we'll see if we can't use those, look out into the future and predict whether there's going to be a crash. Now, I have done a number of videos on this in the past, and my opinion on this has not changed in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing that I see whatsoever that will cause the real estate market to crash this year or even next year. I do think that we will start to see the market go back to something that we would consider more historically normal. And I think that April of 2021 is the first month that we've seen any signs of that whatsoever. So let's go ahead and jump right into the market statistics and get started now. So as you can see, if you look at the active listings going back to January of 2018, there's a historical uptick every year, and then it turns back down after the mid part of the year. And the only difference is that in 2020, as the pandemic spread across the world, inventory actually just went down and 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 put us into the place that we are today, which is a super hyper seller's market. And we're finally beginning to see, for the first time in a year, inventory tick back up. However, it's not going up very much, and it's supposed to be going up. So for now, there's nothing here that would indicate anything whatsoever of a problem. With active listings doing exactly what we would expect them to be doing in April, it's next time to look at what's going on with pending home sales, because they're a predictor of what's going to happen in the next couple of months. If you look at this chart here, you'll see that the number of pending homes in April of 2020 was 6,046, and April of 2021 was 8,215. So if there was any question about whether or not inventory was going to still be going down, you can tell by the number of active listings versus the number of pending sales in April that inventory is still dropping. And we're going to look at another chart that's going to show that as well. The next thing that we need to look at is actual sales. So here's where we did actually see something, I'm going to call it a little bit of an anomaly right now, but we're going to watch this a little bit further. Let's first look at the single family detached market. And you can look at this chart here and see that in April of 2021, we had 7,298 sales versus 5,890. Now remember, we are going into pandemic mode, so some of the comparisons year over year are going to be a little bit off. However, there is something to look at here when we switch over to the attached chart. And I don't know what this is going to mean, but if you look here, you'll see that in March of this year, there were 1,836 sales, and this year there were 1,749 sales. Now, that may not seem like very much of a difference, but we should see more sales in April than we did in March. And I understand that this is the attached market. This would be condominiums and townhomes, but the number of sales should be higher, and it's not. So I'm going to be watching this particular metric very closely for months to come to see if there's a trend here, because we do know something about what happens with a market shift. It begins in the condominium market and the luxury home market before it hits, the single family home market. So if there's going to be a shift, this is where we would see it, and this is one thing that I would definitely want to continue watching if you're interested to know whether or not there's going to be a crash. Okay, so let's move on to the next chart. Here's a look at the overall absorption rate in Atlanta, and it is doing exactly what we would expect based on the active listings and the pending listings charts that I showed you a few minutes ago. Gray is 2021, but you can see that going back from April of 2020, it has continued to drop and drop and drop, and it's dropped every month of this year, and that's what we would expect to see based on the pending chart. Now, what I will say is that when you look at the next chart, I do have 4 months worth of supply listed month after month after month after month here, and you can look at basically everything over $300,000, supply is shrinking. It's shrinking. It's shrinking at every price point here. Now, I will say that there is some good news. Well, I don't know if it's good news or bad news. I guess it depends on where you stand. But I will say that there was a 3-month trend of rising supply for all homes above $1.5 million, and that goes back January, February, and March, and it looks like in April that trend has been reversed. So there's something else to take a look at and keep an eye out as we go forward as well. Moving right along, the next chart that we're going to look at is the sales price, and as you might expect, with inventory being so low and pending sales being so much higher than active listings, that sales prices continue to rise. So let's go ahead and take a look at those charts now. As I look at the median sales price chart for Metro Atlanta going back to January of 2020, everything looks fine to me through 2020 given what happened during that year. It's what's happened in 2021 that is so shocking. You have to do a double take on what's going on here. I mean, look at the gray bars. The prices in January was $295,000. In April, we're looking at $336,000. I mean, this is an unsustainable amount of appreciation. Let's face it, this is faster than inflation. This is faster than salaries are going up. If it continues to go up at a pace like this for very much longer, we will find ourselves at a point where we are pricing first-time home buyers out of houses. And if that happens, right, that's not going to happen overnight. So, you know, if it's going to affect the market, which it certainly will, it's not going to be a crash. You know, it'll be fewer and fewer buyers will be able to buy houses at those prices, and then inventory will begin to stay on the market slightly longer. You know, all of these things will contribute to the market changing some. It's going to change to a normalization though. Admittedly, prices just can't continue to go up the way that they have. Nobody thinks that they can. However, at the end of the day, it comes down to supply and demand. And right now, supply is so low that we can afford to have fewer buyers into the market or more homes enter the market and still stay in a hyper seller's market. That's how low it is. I mean, let's take a look at this next chart here that shows us days on market, and it's going to be another indicator of which direction the market is still heading. As we look at the median days on market chart, we can see that even before the pandemic began, we started to see days on market continuing to shrink. And also it's important to keep in mind that we were in a seller's market before the pandemic. In 2018, we started to be in a seller's market. 2019, we were in a seller's market. And then everything changed, of course, in 2020 and led us to where we are right now. But you could see that post-April shutdown of last year, days on market dropped and dropped, and it has continued to drop all year. I mean, the median days on market in April of 2021 in Metro Atlanta is 5 days. Now, the median days on market means half of the homes are selling for more than the median days, and half of the homes are selling in less than median days. So half of all of the home sales in Metro Atlanta in April sold in less than 5 days. That is an incredible number. And it is important to keep that statistic in mind when we look at the average days on market. So when we look at this chart here, which is a reflection of the average days on market, you can see that in April, the average days on market is 20 versus the median days on market, which is 5. So there is a difference there in the average and the median. And this has implications for the real estate market and for real estate agents as we advise our clients on what to do. And the one thing that you'll need to take away from these two charts between the average days on market and the median days on market is that obviously the average days on market is 20, so the homes that are sitting on the market more than 5 days are sitting on the market for much longer than 5 days, and that means that there are still people that are overpricing their homes. I know we hear a lot about how this is just an insane real estate market and it's easy to sell a house and you don't need a real estate agent, and I'm here to tell you that that is complete and utter nonsense. If you don't market your home properly, present your home properly, and price your home in such a way that it causes the home to sell for the most amount of money, then you're going to sit on the market and you're going to sell for a lot less than you would if you had the right real estate agent representing you on the sale. There's no question about this. It's irrefutable, and anybody who doesn't understand that doesn't understand how the real estate market truly works. To illustrate that point just a little bit further, I'm going to show you two charts on failed listings. So this first chart we're going to look at here on failed listings is going to show you the failed listings by price. And you can see very clearly for yourself the gray area, which is the failed listings, that it doesn't matter which price point you're at. There's, 15 or 20% of the houses are failing to sell. As a matter of fact, if you look at this next chart here, you can see by price point which percentage homes are failing to sell for. And I think that there's something to this here. As you start to get up in the $4, $5, $6, $7, $800,000 price points and higher, you'll see that the gray bar represents April, the blue chart represents March, and you can see that April has a higher number of homes failing to sell than we had failed to sell in March. Now, a lot of this has to do with just over exuberant sellers. This is not yet any reflection on the real estate market or an indication of a downturn. This is simply a matter of more people being enthusiastic about pricing their home, maybe just a little bit too high. Or you have people in the market that may be just testing the waters, and if it doesn't sell right away, they're pulling the house off the market. This happens in all markets, and quite frankly, it makes a lot of sense for somebody. If you're ever gonna sell, I mean, what better time than right now? And so that's the April 2021 market update for Metro Atlanta. And so now if I've got to make some predictions on what I think is going to happen as we go forward for the rest of the year in 2021 and out into 2022, there's one very specific chart that I'm going to point to that's going to tell me what I think is going to happen at least for the rest of the year. And that's this one right here. Look at the absorption rate. You can see the absorption rate is under a month. It's been at or below a month since December, basically, and it's continued to go down every month in 2021. So even if it starts to go up a little bit, it's still a seller's market. As a matter of fact, there's nothing on this chart that even shows a buyer's market. You've got to remember, a buyer's market is represented by 6 months or more of inventory. 6 months being balanced. You could say 5 months to 7 months is a balanced market, but 6 is where we're going to call it. So if you have to have 6 months worth of inventory to reach a balanced market, above that, at which it becomes a buyer's market, you see prices start to fall once you go above 6 months or so of inventory. So what is it going to take to actually get us to a buyer's market, let alone a crash? Well, let's take a look at a couple of other charts here and I'll show you. We know that we have under 1 month of inventory, and that number of homes happens to be right now, looking at our active listings, we have less than 6,000 homes on the market and we have less than 1 month supply of homes. So if you take the 1 month supply and you need 6 months supply to reach the 6 month mark where you reach a balanced market, then you need 6 times the number of listings. Now, that would mean that we would have to have something on the order of 35,000 listings. Now, that's not the way this is going to work. There's no way in the world we would see 35,000 homes. Back in 2019, we were at 20,000 homes. So what's going to happen is you're going to have interest rates rise. You're going to see fewer buyers in the market going forward because of those higher interest rates, along with a rise in the active listings. So even if we had 3 or 4 times the number of homes with interest rates rising, if we have a drop of, say, 20% in demand, which would be a ridiculously high number, expect something more like 5% when the interest rates rise, maybe 10% at the most, you'll end up with a balanced market at the very worst case scenario, unless there's something else totally crazy and completely unforeseen that happens in the real estate market that is completely unpredictable. Nothing that is on paper anywhere indicates any possibility of a market crash. So it's definitely going to have to be something that is completely unforeseen to get us into a housing market crash. I don't even see us reaching a balanced inventory until 2023 at the current rate we're at right now. So That's my take on this. You may have a different opinion. If so, please feel free to leave a comment below. Make sure you like this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to provide you with a copy of the PDF of our April monthly market report. If you'd like that monthly, just drop an email below or just leave a comment and I'll be happy to make sure I put you on a list to get that every month. Thanks for watching and have a great day.